We have our own set of rules on how they should be run, set up by the legislature. For example, back in 2011, lawmakers made it so anyone who wanted to vote in a primary election had to be a registered member of that political party, a closed primary system. However, Idaho's law does allow political parties the option to leave theirs open, which is what the Democrats did. State Republicans, however, closed their primaries the following year, allowing only registered Republicans to vote in the Republican primary. Some call it restrictive. Some others say it's not restrictive enough. Andrew Bartline was able to get his hands on a proposed rule change that state Republicans are trying to make within the Republican primary. And if passed, it would change who's eligible to vote in that primary in Idaho. Andrew?
Yeah, this proposed rule gives the Idaho Republican State Central Committee the power to decide who represents the Republican Party on the November general election ballot. It would not be a vote from the registered voters here in Idaho, Republican voters. So it takes away the power from the people and gives it to the committee. 210 people make up that committee, with representatives from each county and legislative district. The rule says, quote, any candidate seeking the Republican nomination for governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, state treasurer, superintendent of public instruction, or controller shall first obtain an endorsement from such office from the State Central Committee of the Idaho Republican Party. And this also extends to Idaho's U.S. senators and representatives, state legislatures, a sheriff, clerk, essentially most elected positions. The rule says rounds of voting continues until one candidate receives 60% of the State Central Committee's vote. We spoke with Taro Tovey, a member of the Rules Committee. He's openly against the rule change. He says this rule is not built on the values of the Republican Party.
The problem is I'm surprised that these candidates that are highly supported by the Idaho Freedom Foundation and these factions, especially out of Bonneville County, Brian Smith is running for Congress. I'm surprised he hasn't denounced this, or Janice McGeechan. I'm really, it tells when a political person is so afraid of their opponents that they don't want the people to decide. They want a small group of people to remove their opposition so they may have a clear path for the Republican primary, which in our state usually is the only one that matters because the general election is usually not contested in most races.
We also reached out to State Committeeman Doyle Beck. He's one of the Rules Committee members submitting this proposed rule change. Beck confirms the documents we have are legitimate and correct, and he wouldn't speak to us on camera, but did tell us over email, quote, the primary election is to find the best Republican candidate possible, to challenge the other best party candidate possible. The 210 people you referred to, that would be the committee, are all elected precinct committeemen or leaders elected by the precinct committeemen. This is a very grassroots that can be more easily replaced by the populace if they don't like their decisions. And here's Tovey's response.
They were voted in to represent their constituency, not to hold a vote of these elected offices. So effectively what they want to do is remove the primary altogether. They don't want to have a primary.
The resolution also says the Republican Party has the right to choose its preferred nominee, adding this rule is a response to the press encouraging Democrats, independents to register as Republicans and sabotage the integrity of their primary election. It's important to note Ada County Clerk Phil McGrain told Joe Paris in November on the county level, it's very rare for them to see somebody change their registered party, if at all.
I know. So, Andrew, I'm looking at this proclamation right now that they want to bring to the winter meeting. Whereas multiple media outlets in Idaho have recently published articles actively encouraging Democrats and independents to fraudulently register as Republicans in order to sabotage Republican voters' rights to choose their own nominees. First of all, I'll contest that myself because this isn't something we've been promoting. We have just been simply saying this is something that is possible under Idaho law, therefore not fraudulent. So I'll take issue with that and calling it dishonest and unethical behavior by media outlets. But besides that, let's say what this is. This is what they're trying to avoid this. They're trying to avoid people switching parties just to kind of go in and mess up the Republican primary, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's their whole point. That's the logic behind it in the resolution. And we did a story on this a while ago with Joe Paris. That's where we got that information from Phil McGrain as well, that they really don't see any evidence of that happening. sure it's possible, sure somebody's done it, but that it's widespread and happens often. They didn't see that at the county level at all here in Ada County.
And it's worth pointing out, this is not something that is a done deal just yet. There's a process to this, right?
Yeah, the Resolutions and Rules Committee both have to approve the rule, and then the General State Central Committee then has the vote. That would be 210 of them. So basically, it's 210 people that would vote on whether they, the same 210 people, should have the power to decide the Republican nominee for the entire state. Brian?
Right. So instead of letting the voters decide, they don't like the outcome, we think this guy's better. In some cases, I could see how that might play out, but boy, it's kind of sketchy. All right, thank you very much, Andrew.